give you another month if you want it.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to now call the November 12th, 2019 Longmont City Council regular session order. Welcome again, Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. Let's go ahead and start with roll call.
Mayor Bagley,
Here.
Councilmember Christensen, Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, Councilmember Martin, Councilmember Peck, Councilmember Rodriguez, Councilmember Waters. Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, let's go ahead and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, just a quick reminder, if you are here and would like to speak at first call public invited to be heard, you need to come down and get your name on this list. If it's not on the list, you can still talk tonight, but we're going to stick you at the end of the meeting. In addition, everybody who speaks will have 3 minutes, and at the 3-minute mark, no matter what we think of what you're saying, love it, hate it, etc., I'll have to unfortunately cut you off due to just the agenda and overall time. All right, we don't have an approval of minutes, but I do believe, Councilmember Peck, you have a few things pertaining to agenda revisions and motions to direct city staff for future issues.
I do, thank you. I would like to move that we direct staff to come back at the next regular meeting with dates for our retreats so that we'll have enough time to decide what we want to talk about.
Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Peck, we were hoping to talk to you about that tonight.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
see it on the
if
agenda.
that's all right. Yeah,
Yes.
as part of your calendaring.
See how fast those motions.
I
at that.
vehemently
Super
object.
quick.
Thank you. I do have one other thing, though. I would like to direct staff again to come back with a report on the air quality monitoring with a due date on when we can find it up and running by the next regular session, if possible. Thank you. I need a second.
I'd second that could we ask him just, instead of dictating that it be next regular session, could we tell them to fit it into the agenda and they can just bring it back?
Well, the reason I want that is we're already into November, and I would like to hear that it's going to be up by the end of the year.
Got it.
So
Is that going to cause a problem?
we're it's just a report.
Could you just give us an update on?
We can do
all right,
that in city manager reports.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Can we
Thank you
just go
very
ahead and put
much.
that on the agenda then? All right,
We'll do it in my report since the agenda is already being compiled.
next regular session?
Yep.
All right, cool, done.
Thank you. Do we need to vote on that because it was a motion
I mean, we could,
and
but we just,
seconded?
I mean,
But rules of procedure say we should.
we could vote anyway, but mayor also says I can just put it on the agenda. But we can vote if you'd like. Let's vote. That way you know I won't take
Let's
it off and be
do.
sneaky. Let's vote. That's fine.
Thank you.
All right, that passes unanimously. Okay. All right, let's move on to city manager's report. Anything?
No
All right.
report, Mayor, Council.
And no special reports tonight, right?
Yes, you have special.
Oh, sorry,
reports.
third quarter, yes. All right, this time we'll go on to 6A, third quarter report of the activities of the Longmont Economic Development Partnership. Jessica, you're here? I don't know, are you here? Don't mind me, I'm just going to eat my cake.
Good evening, Mayor Bagley and council members. First, I want to say congratulations to you, Mayor, and to Councilman Waters and Councilwoman Peck for your re-elections. And congratulations and welcome to Councilwoman Hidalgo Faring. I'm Jessica Erickson. I'm President and CEO of the Longmont Economic Development Partnership, and I am here to provide our Q3 impact report. So I'm going to start, I have a little bit more detail than usual because we do have a new council person present, and so open to questions if you have them. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review the report that was in your packet. So I will start with our 2019 funding update. Just a note about our structure as an organization. We are a 501c6 nonprofit, public-private nonprofit organization. And the purpose of that structure is really to leverage the investment of your public dollars to generate private investment to support the work of our organization. With the assumption or the idea that all who benefit the most from the work of the Economic Development Partnership also have a financial stake in the work of the organization. And so the chart up here you have in your report going all the way back to 2015 for font sizes. I only went back to 2017 on my slide. And so you'll see that year to date, we've received all of our public funding with the exception of the remainder of our contractual funding from the City of Longmont that we receive on a monthly basis. Our other public funding sources are Boulder County, Platte River Power Authority, and grant funding and partner funding for administration of the North Metro Enterprise Zone. And then the last row being our private investment and sponsorship. So that's all of the private sector revenue that we've generated year to date. We are on pace. We are like a lot of nonprofits where a significant portion of our funding comes in the fourth quarter of every year. And so we are on pace this year, assuming we have a similar fourth quarter, better fourth quarter than past years, to achieve the highest level of private sector funding that we have had in the 38-year history of this organization. The primary reason for the success that we've had with private sector funding this year is a very targeted campaign that we launched in October of last year, our Reach for the Peaks campaign, which was really intended to significantly increase private sector funding, specifically targeted to a couple of different, one initiative and then the ability to create a flexible fund for us to take advantage of opportunities and address challenges as they arise without dipping into our operating reserve, which is what we've done historically. And so the list that you see up here are organizations and individuals that have invested in our Reach for the Peaks campaign. The primary initiative that we're funding out of those campaign funds right now is the development of a national economic development marketing campaign for the City of Longmont with a significant focus on talent attraction, which is what we've been told by not just these investors, but our primary industry businesses that's what the need is today. And that's really the trend in economic development, is this idea of attracting talent to retain and attract business investment. So all of those. What's most exciting about this list too is that over half of that list prior to this year in this campaign had not previously been invested in or engaged in economic development in the City of Longmont. So we're excited about that. Okay, so next we'll talk about the deliverables that are in our contract and where we're at relative to those. Again, this is Q3, so this is through September 30th of 2019. I'm not going to talk a lot about Advanced Longmont because we have a whole other presentation related to that after this. But just to frame that, based on the deliverables that were in our contract for 2019, specifically to complete a comprehensive update of the Advanced Longmont strategy, which is what you're going to be hearing about later today, as well as to continue to support the ongoing project management and activity coordination of the plan, track its activities, lead the Advanced Longmont Partners Group meetings, and provide annual review and evaluation of the metrics for implementation of the plan. And I'll move into our primary industry deliverables. These are on the metrics matrix that's at the end of the report that you received in your packet. So what I'm going to be addressing are just the high-level goals and highlighting some of the program objectives that we've achieved as part of our progress towards these goals. So our goal for 2019 relative to primary industry was to attract, relocate, or expand 10 primary industry businesses, creating 500 new well-paying jobs, and investing $550 million in capital investment in Longmont. And we always have a goal to retain 100% of our primary industry employers, although we don't know that number until the end of the year when we do our year-end survey. So you'll see that year to date, we've worked with 57 businesses that we've worked with or have taken advantage of our programs to relocate, enter into, or expand in the Longmont market with the intention to create over 1,100 jobs and invest over $126 million in capital investment in our community. Some of the related highlights is that we have worked with 62 total prospects, 32 of those new coming in 2019. And so what that means is the other half of those prospects that didn't come in 2019 are multi-year projects that we've been working on. With the ongoing projects that we are continue to work with, there's a potential for an additional 4,769 jobs. That's optimistically if we were to win all of those projects and they were to locate here in Longmont. So we currently in Longmont sit at a 2.6% unemployment rate and 11.4% combined commercial real estate vacancy. Our real estate vacancy is relatively skewed by the former Max Store Seagate building, 460,000 square feet. That makes up over half of that vacancy. Take that out of the picture and we're less than 5% vacant across the community. We often get asked, what do we mean when we talk about projects and prospects that we're working with? So I just wanted to highlight a couple from Q3. These both actually happen to be locating in the new 1925 Pike Road building, which we're also located in. Mobile Canning Systems is an existing business that we've worked with for a number of years as they've expanded here in Longmont, most recently to help secure some development fee rebates for the their expansion into a brand new 38,000 square foot facility on Pike Road. Durodyne, on the other hand, is a company based out of New York that is just entering the Colorado market, identified Longmont as a potential location, and worked with us to better understand the labor market and the market in general for their business. They manufacture accessories and connectors for HVAC equipment. We do spend a significant portion of our time on what we call business retention or our Elevate Longmont program, including an annual survey of our primary industry base, where we actually use volunteers from our investor base to go out and survey our primary industry businesses every year, and then release a state of industry report based on the results of that. What we learned from the surveys this year is that our existing primary industry employers see location, workforce, and cost of doing business as the greatest benefits of doing business here in Longmont, and that most of our primary industry employers anticipate growth both in terms of employment and revenue in the coming years. The next category we'll look at is our local business with goals to attract, relocate, or expand 10 local businesses that would create 50 new jobs and invest $10 million in capital investment. So far, we've won 5 of the projects that we've those businesses that are serving the local community versus our primary industry that are exporting goods and services out of the community. And those 5 businesses have in total created 12 net new jobs. So the highlights of the programs that we offer for our local business is that we did have as of September 30th, 1 retail conversion grant pending completion. That was the 300 Suns Brewery expansion that has since the end of Q3 been completed and awarded. And so that will show up in our Q4 report. The small business loan program through Colorado Enterprise Fund, funded by City of Longmont and Guarantee Bank, has closed 3 small business loans with local businesses totaling $104,000. Longmont EDP has issued 2 $1,000 destination boot camp scholarships. These are scholarships for local business companies to go and learn how to become destination companies, opening their audience up to a more regional audience and to become a destination within our community from outside of our community. We continue to work with, we've worked with 7 total local business prospects this year, and we still have 2 active that we're working on. Startup community, you'll see that we're not meeting our target goals set in our contract for startup community, which was to support the launch of 10 new ventures that would create 20 new jobs. We're at 2 launched businesses, creating 5 jobs. A big reason for that is we've spent much of this year retooling our entrepreneurial development programs. In particular, the Innovate Longmont program, which is our entrepreneurial accelerator program. We've actually realigned some of the grant funding through the City of Longmont to support entrepreneurs that come through that accelerator. Sergio Angelis, who manages the program, has completely retooled that program. We now have 2 entrepreneurial companies that are enrolled in the Innovate Longmont Accelerator program, with 1 other in the application process and another whose application will be reviewed shortly. So we see doing better by the end of the year relative to those metrics, and then certainly as that program continues to grow, that we're achieving more success. And then also wanted to point out, as you're aware, that Entrepreneurship for All has launched their Longmont program. They'll start their first accelerator in January. They are housed at Longmont EDP and will be supporting that program as well as another path to supporting entrepreneurial development in the community. So overall, when we look at the economy, local economy relative to jobs and industry, when we look at last year, we ended, or 2017 to 2018, so when we look year over year, we have 55,762 jobs across all industry. We saw 2% job growth from 27 to 2018, 12% job growth 2013 to 2018, outpacing national and I believe state and regional job growth in that year. As compared to what we're projecting for this year, we project to end the year with 55,992 jobs, which would represent about a 0.5% job growth across all industries. And we're currently at 2.6% unemployment, and it doesn't get much lower than that, so I don't anticipate that we'll see it go much lower than that. And then when we look more specifically at targeted industries, which you'll hear more about as part of the Advanced Longmont 2.0 presentation, overall we're seeing, as we should, significantly higher growth in those industries, for the most part with the exception of manufacturing, which is kind of a macro trend right now, but totaling 2.9% growth across our targeted industry clusters. The last thing I'll mention, even though it's kind of a Q4 development since we moved in October, is that we have moved into our new facility, the Advanced Longmont Center, and do welcome you all to join us for our ribbon cutting and grand opening event on the 19th. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Jessica, could you go back to slide 11? You may have said this and I missed it, but one more. There. Under meeting your target goals, what do these little orange?
So that
Bars.
is, so that's kind of our in-between. We're not, the numbers that we're reflecting right now are not on pace to meet our target goals, but based on the projects that we're working on, we still have the potential to meet our target goals. Whereas with, where we have the red X's for startup, we don't see it likely that we'll get there by the end of the year. Whereas with the local business piece, we still have the potential with the projects that we're working on.
So you think that creation of 50 new jobs, but you've only created 12, you think you can get to 50 by?
Yeah, I mean, we have one local business project that would on its own achieve that metric if we were to announce it by the end of the year.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yeah.
All right. Just on behalf of council, thank you.
Okay.
We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Given your just life in general.
Thanks.
But keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right, now let's move on to 6B, the presentation of Advanced Longmont 2.0 Strategic Plan for Economic Development. Now you're just showing off.
Me again. Good evening again, Mayor Bagley and council members. I'm actually going to turn this one over to Morgan Smith, Vice President of Longmont EDP, who's really managed the Advanced Longmont 2.0 update and continues to manage the implementation of that to provide this presentation.
Thank you.
Good. This seriously needs to come up. Let's see. Good evening. Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to provide this update to all of you, and I believe most on council have seen some of this content before, but I will provide as much context as possible to both provide history of this update and to provide context to the plan as a whole. So Advanced Longmont was originally drafted and adopted in 2013 and 2014 as the city's official economic development strategy, and it over the past 4 or 5 years, Longmont has substantially changed. And we recognized near the end of 2018 that there was an opportunity to update our economic development strategy to reflect our new opportunities, to address new challenges in our community, and we call that Advanced Longmont 2.0. So the essence of Advanced Longmont 2.0 centers around collective impact. And collective impact is simply a model. It's bringing people together in a structured way to achieve social or economic change. This is a national model that communities use to address shared challenges in their community. And a good collective impact process has distinctly 4 steps, and that's analyzing the landscape, initiating dialogue, creating a common agenda, and then implementing and learning as we implement new initiatives in our community across organizations. So Jessica had mentioned some of the deliverables for our contract. This is the update in analyzing the landscape. That's what we will call a market assessment. And our market assessment in Advanced Longmont 2.0, as you may have had the opportunity to read through the final document, really focused on this quote, that top line growth doesn't ensure bottom line prosperity. That we may have excellent growth rates, but it may not be well distributed across our community. And so we used 3 different lenses in our market assessment as we analyzed our community. That was growth, which is crucial and important since it serves as the engine for our local economic success. But also we looked at prosperity and inclusion. Prosperity is how well distributed that growth is across different occupations, households, and families in our community, and then inclusion as to well how distributed that growth is across racial and ethnic groups in our community. I'm not going to, I'll spare you tonight all of the data. There's plenty in the document that was attached to your council communication, but please, I can answer any questions at the end in case you have them. We also, as a part of this market assessment, updated our target industry clusters. So an economic development strategy allows us to focus our efforts, particularly around recruitment, on targeted industries that serve a competitive advantage to our community. And we identified these 4 target industry clusters using a data-driven approach and a methodology that was developed between the Federal Economic Development Administration and Harvard. And we came up with smart manufacturing. We didn't pull this out of a back room. Like, we did do the data on this. Smart manufacturing, business catalyst, food and beverage, and knowledge creation and deployment. And you'll hear this come up later as we talk about industry priorities, but smart manufacturing companies are companies that make basically advanced technology products, the cool widgets, the optics, the lasers, all of the cool little high-tech products as our smart manufacturing companies. Business catalysts tend to be B2B businesses, people who are marketing design agencies, specialized consultants, those folks who are helping other businesses succeed. Food and beverage, that's pretty straightforward. And then knowledge creation and deployment tends to be mostly our private. Also encompasses our biotechnology companies. And it represents a really cool cluster in our community. I'll just pause here. We also, as a part of updating this as process, we initiated dialogue with our Advanced Longmont partners and a number of other community stakeholders to identify shared priorities. So the idea behind collective impact is not that the economic development partnership comes along and says, we think this is a great idea, and then we're going to implement it. The community and our number of organizations in Longmont get together and say, these are great ideas, let's implement these together. And so the common agenda represents a number of shared priorities that were identified and agreed upon during our stakeholder engagement process. And these are separated into 5 distinct strategic focus areas, if you'd like to call them something. And I'll just go through them with you now. So in talent, our goal is twofold, that we're successfully recruiting new talent, the talent that industry needs today that we don't have locally, while building industry relevant talent pipelines, while building career pathways with our school district. And this 2-prong approach is really powerful since it allows us to dedicate resources to fill current job openings that industry needs and ensure that our local community has ladders into those high technical jobs or highly skilled jobs in our community. And our talent work is one of my favorites. I'll just be honest here. Place is largely about placemaking. Our goal in this is that Longmont is a vibrant, amenity-rich community with a diverse mixture of options for play and food and culture and unique experiences. And as you can see from these priorities, this is centered around centers and corridors. So urban centers, playful, colorful urban centers, and particularly the river corridor as a vibrant community asset. And then lastly, and crucially, is ensuring residential affordability for our current and future residents. This is a huge priority. It plays into our talent priorities. It plays into building a stronger community, and we knew that this would reflect in our place work. Industry, the goal in this, and this is certainly more the economic development partnership wheelhouse day in and day out, but our goal is that primary and local and startup companies in Longmont thrive with a collaborative business environment, with easy access to financing and real estate and mentorship. And these priorities reflect those. We want to pursue strategic growth in each of those targeted industry clusters that I mentioned before, and we want to construct an ecosystem, a no wrong door ecosystem here locally, where whether you're starting up a small retail company or maybe you're a large employer, that no matter where you interact with a resource provider, it could be us, it could be an SBDC or a startup organization, that there isn't a wrong door to access those resources. And then lastly, to attract new real estate investment to meet our primary industry and startup needs. As Jessica mentioned, our commercial real estate vacancy, once you exclude a couple properties, gets really low. And to be able to create spaces for those companies that would create jobs in our community is a real important priority. Connectivity is mainly about transportation. That will be the gold standard for multimodal transportation, offering multiple modes and points of access throughout the city, the region, and the nation. And the priorities in here reflect that scope, that we're building a comprehensive intra-city multimodal transit, that we're connecting to the region, and that we're investing in Vance brand as an integral infrastructure asset. And then lastly is impact. And this underscores the whole plan. So this sounds maybe duplicative from the collective model, but that we're nationally recognized as a city that solves problems together. The idea behind collective impact is that we're uniting organizations and resources and people from all sectors to implement what matters. And that's what the priorities reflect. We're increasing funding so we can accomplish these things, and we're leveraging private sector leadership in all of our initiatives to make sure that we're interfacing between all parts of our community as we implement this. What I'd like to lastly turn to in this is our model for implementation. Where are we actually doing? So for the last 4 or 5 years, as a result of Advance Longmont, we've been convening the Advance Longmont Partners. This is a group of our local economic development organizations, broadly speaking, whether that's Tinkermill, the Latino Chamber, the SBDC, and many others, into this partners group, and it's a roundtable that has met monthly. As a result of Advance Longmont 2.0, the partners have become a steering committee to the whole implementation of Advance Longmont 2.0. They're stewarding with some strategic visioning around 3 and 5 year timelines compared to some of the more immediate work. And the Longmont EDP serves as the backbone to all of this work, the organizational support to make sure that whatever initiatives are coming out are being implemented. And those initiatives are coming out of what you see as the working groups. And we've convened 4 working groups: talent, place, industry, and connectivity. We decided not to do impact because we didn't know what we would do an impact working group on. Maybe it's the steering committee already. But in these working groups, there's a broad cross-section of our community. In place, we have local artists, and we have planners, and local business owners, and many more who are sitting around a table and looking at these priorities and goals that I just shared with you and saying, what can we do in the near term? What can we do as in our organization that can help this and achieve these longer term goals and priorities for our community? We began to convene these working groups in June and we are just finalizing some 2020 action plans, outlining our initiatives, outlining our metrics for success, and we'll have that at the end of next month as the new year rolls in. So tonight, what I wanted to present this to you, and what we wanted to present this to you was for your adoption as the city's official economic development strategy. That's our first ask. And secondly, to have an official appointee from City Council to sit on our Advance Longmont Partners group. This is a new ask. We have not previously had a city councilor sit on Advance Longmont Partners, but in a reflection of our collective impact model, and all the partners agreed that it would be wise to have an official city councilor who sits on the partners group. So I can answer any questions you have now. Thank you for your time.
I don't see any. Dr. Waters?
Thanks, Mayor Bagley. Remind me, Morgan, when you graduated from DU?
2018?
Do you suppose, I've said this before, I'm just going to say it again. Suppose his professors are proud of him, his economics professors, when he, at this stage of his development. So kudos to both of you. Jessica, you did a great job here as well in terms of sharing the information. And I was hard on this report a couple of years ago in my first council member. Say what? Yeah.
Paper's doing this.
So thanks for the report. I do have one question and one observation. You would probably not be surprised that I'm going to ask about where childcare fits.
Yes.
I've, as a member of your talent recruitment working group, I've raised this question in relationship to talent recruitment, and I see housing falling under place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably where it should go.
Mm-hmm.
But housing without the kind of commitment that we need to make to childcare is kind of half a loaf. So where would you put childcare in terms of these priorities?
Probably, I've been thinking about this after our last conversation. I do think it does sit within our broad talent framework, given its priority. I also think there might be an opportunity to, although we haven't formalized anything around this, to even create some kind of ad hoc group around that specific issue. To your observation that our talent recruitment efforts related to our priorities won't be as successful as they could be if we do not have affordable residential housing to house that new talent and affordable childcare for young parents who are moving to our community. So it is embedded in our framework. So it's either in our talent group, since it relates to our priorities around recruitment, or it is an ad hoc group. I think that's something we're still figuring out.
So for it to be explicit at this level, I think makes sense. And if it's added someplace, or as I think about any of these, the question that provokes for me is, if I were to add a column optimizing policy considerations.
Yeah.
Is that part of the work that's underway now? Because some of that would be policy options for the city. It might be for the community college. It might be for four-year institutions. It might be for all of the other, ways you think about developing pipelines of talent, and what the policy levers are for those who are in that part of the business to support the kind of successful implementation of these strategies.
Yeah.
Is that a conversation? Is somebody seriously looking at optimizing policy options for the city, for the community college, for the school district, for other policy bodies?
So I think the best answer that I can provide to you honestly is that is the work of the working group, where after our discussion around metrics and we begin to discuss specific initiatives, those initiatives do not have to be programmatic. They can be policy changes. I think perhaps a good programmatic example is something around our opportunity zone for real estate investment. That's something a little more programmatic, and that's an obvious opportunity. I think, though, that there is a substantial window that we can have, since we have an assistant superintendent and the director of business development the director of business and community partnerships for the school district, and the head of workforce development for the college, and the VP of Boulder County campus, and yourself, and many other people sitting at that same table in the talent working group, that those conversations are where those should, the right term is not fester, it's germinate, shall we? Yeah, I can't think of the right term, but that's where the right forum would be. And that's where we are supporting those initiatives, but it's not as a dedicated staffer. I'm not necessarily spending time currently looking at policy optimization across, let's say, 15 or 30 different organizations in the community.
Well, it would be, from my mind, it's not policy optimization as much as policies that optimize the effective implementation of the priorities or the strategies that go with those priorities.
Certainly.
Because the policy ought to be the lever that helps to support this, right?
Yes.
So the next time I'm in a conversation with you in this as part of I'll bring that lens.
Please.
Right? What are the policy considerations that we ought to be thinking about? In time frame, you heard a few minutes ago, Councilmember Peck wonder about when we're going to do our goal setting, and that we're going to talk about that apparently tonight. Sooner would be better rather than later, to the degree that what we should be thinking about as policy considerations translate into goals or initiatives of some kind. Walking into that session would be really helpful to know what can we do to leverage all the other resources, talent, et cetera, that's being applied here.
And I suppose the comment that I have is that Advanced Longmont 2.0 was aligned with Council Work Plan
You
and a
can see
number
it.
of other strategic plans in the city. And so we're not asking council to use the specific language that we do necessarily, but that the goals that council has already set out around whether it's entrepreneurialism or whether it's placemaking of housing, et cetera, those are reflected in Advanced Longmont 2.0. So the work that council has already been doing has been greatly successful, and we've aligned ourselves to that work, that ongoing work. And I have a sense that Jessica would like to add something.
And I'll just add to that, we've really, even as an organization, as Longmont EDP, aligned ourselves around this strategy much more so than we did around Advanced Longmont. Advanced Longmont was kind of a thing, and then we had all of our other things that we did. And now everything that we do is aligned around Advanced Longmont 2.0, including the Reach for the Peaks campaign. Those investors have formed a the private sector leadership council for us. At the beginning of the year, they set their own priorities specific to a couple of the focus areas in the Advanced Longmont 2.0 strategy where they thought they had the best opportunity to have impact and influence. And one of those was the impact focus area. And most of their priorities, which I'll absolutely share with you, are around having conversations about policy and helping to influence policy. Some of the conversations that we've already been having around affordable housing and sustainability evaluation system are relative to that. Those are the private sector individuals that we invite to the table for those conversations. And so they're looking at policy from a local, state, and federal level and how they, as private sector leaders within our community, can bring a voice to the table for those.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Christensen.
I'm going back a little bit to the one Jessica presented. So when we're looking at the private investment sponsorship, we know all the other players because they're all public. And this is our, LEDP is our only economic development. So I want to be sure that we know that all the people listed under Reach for the Peaks or all those groups are the ones that are the private investment and sponsorships. Are there any others that we don't know about?
All of our investors are public and listed on our website. Those are the 30 that are currently invested in that specific campaign and program. But we have about 120 total private sector annual investors. Again, you can find that list. It's on our website. It's on every single quarterly report that we send out, fully transparent and fully disclosed. We don't have any reason to not disclose who any of our funding partners are or our private sector investors are. And then sponsorships are really just that. We have a variety of events throughout the year that a company might have a specific interest in getting in front of that audience, and so they pay to sponsor that event. Sure. And those are all, that's part of why they do it, is for the exposure, so those are all fully out in the open and public as well.
Okay, thank you.
Just to chime in, it really is Jessica coming to your office and going, we need money. And you go, okay, what do I get for it? And then she says what she just said, but then they just get a check, pretty much. All right, Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. So Jessica, you said that this common agenda that Morgan presented is basically in Advanced Longmont what LEDP is working off of. So my concern, and I guess I want clarification, is that council works off of Envision Longmont, which is our comprehensive plan. So some of these things I notice are in Envision Longmont, like place and impact. So how are we connecting these two, Envision with this Advanced Longmont 2.0?
So I'll just say that the first thing, I'll have Morgan expand on this, literally the first thing that he did day one, starting with the organization, was to do an assessment of all of the plans that were out there that had been adopted by the city. Envision Longmont, the downtown master plan, the city council work plan, the sustainability plan, the Main Street transit plan, and we focused our strategy on where all of those align. But I'll let Morgan talk a little bit more about, and we can share that with you as well.
Okay.
So Jessica's right. We did a thorough alignment between the number of plans to look at where the plans said the same things but in different ways, which is an often used tactic in a bunch of these strategic plans. And in Advanced Longmont 2.0, our goal was to align and accelerate some of that work. So what you'll see in connectivity and in place is an acceleration or a restatement of the same multimodal priorities that's in the city's multimodal plan, that is in, that's Envision Longmont, right? And place, much in the same way that it focuses on centers and corridors, is aligned with the Envision's focus on centers and corridors. And in our place group, we have Erin Fosdick, who's senior planner with the city, who is a champion of Envision Longmont. There's very few things that I can get past her without her mentioning that, oh yeah, that's an Envision Longmont, or oh yes, we did that. So it's a part of our ongoing conversations. It's not in our interest to ignore the comp plan for the city. It's actually to our benefit, and that's what we want in our economic development strategy, is that it's not a standalone economic development strategy and then we have a comp plan, but that they're actually aligned and moving in the same direction.
Okay. When you bring this to us, just like when staff brings things to us, they show where in the work plan it aligns in our work plan.
Mm-hmm.
It would be helpful to me if you would say this aligns with Envision Longmont in their place or connectivity or wherever in our Envision plan, so we can make sure that we're all following the same goals and we're
Sure.
not working off of two different plans. The other thing
Yes.
that I want clarification that Councilman Waters said was about the policy.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are deciding policy, those are only recommendations to bring to council, correct? You are not making policy.
Correct. Yes. No, we
you.
don't have the
I
ability
just wanted
to.
to clarify that.
As much as some of us would love that, we don't have that
Not
ability.
that I don't trust you, Morgan.
I
it's just-
appreciate that, council member.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. So most of these strategic plans generally kind of have a general shelf life to them. I was just wondering, when you come up with this, knowing the pace at which things change, the technological disruptions, or, for instance, opportunity zones have a fast ticking clock on them, how much flexibility does the plan have to adapt to the changes that come, say, with the change in administration or possibly not change in administration in 2020?
That's a great question, council member. I think, so to provide context, Advanced Longmont, the original, what we affectionately call 1.0, not that it was actually called that, but 1.0 was a checklist, strictly speaking. It was a very tactical plan, and it was very much do this, do this, do this, do this. And Advanced Longmont 2.0 was intentionally designed around that question, that we wanted to be flexible. So one of the reasons that in the plan itself, there is not a goal, and then there are the 3 priorities under each goal, and then there's 17 checkboxes under each priority, is that we wanted to make sure that the groups that we're convening, the talent, the place, the industry, the connectivity working groups, are bringing their lived experience from on the ground about what St. Vrain is already doing about micro-credentialing for the talent, the modern workforce, to the table, so that we are adaptable to those changes. There's a lot of things that are outside of our control, and we totally understand that. And part of 2.0 is designed around that, particularly in coordination with some of our funding efforts, to have a flexible fund that we might be able to put towards some cool initiatives as they arise. There's certainly some dimension to this where we rely on our partners' knowledge and expertise in providing what's actually happening, that we know that the community college is thinking about these kinds of advanced manufacturing or artificial intelligence programs. And the same goes for the macroeconomic circumstances. we have no control whether the economy crashes or not. And part of building a more resilient local economy, we believe, is using this embedded framework between those partners. So there's not really a silver bullet to answer that question, but this plan is intentionally designed around living that question.
Right. So in essence, you could say that instead of going from a 1.0 to a 2.0 to a 3.0, it's more likely that we're going to get like 2.1 and 2.2 iterations of the plan.
And to your original question, we haven't set a here's when we're going to close up the books on Advanced Longmont 2.0. Somewhat intentionally, these are pretty high level goals and priorities. We've generally talked about a 10-year time frame. It could be shorter. I don't think it will be. I think that based on what we see in other communities for collective impact work like this, that it just takes enough of that time for people to implement and learn so that there's enough coordination where when we talk about these goals and priorities, you're right, it will likely become a 2.1. Here's an update or an addendum to a new priority instead of a whole rehashing of the entire strategic framework.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Morgan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate it. All right, let's move on to first call public invited to be heard. Oh, Sandy, do you have something to say?
So, Mayor, sorry, before you move on, I think they were asking for somebody to sit on the Advanced Council group
And for formal adoption.
and to adopt the Advanced Longmont 2.0 plan,
All
please.
right, I move for formal adoption of the plan presented. All right, let's vote. Councilmember Martin? All right? That's all right. That passes unanimously. Do we have a volunteer who'd like to serve on the LEDP board? Or the Advanced Longmont 2.0 board? Not everybody wants. All right. Do you guys want to arm wrestle for it? Arm wrestle, jiu-jitsu, whatever. You can choose a champion if you would. Yeah, so we'll
Sure.
figure that out later.
That makes
Okay?
sense.
Great, thanks. You've got a couple. All right, great, thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
All right, let's move on to first call public invited to be heard. Jalen and David Espy.
It's not gonna be easy. It's herbs in my hand.
Herbs.
Hi, council. I'm Jalen, and this is my husband, David. Oh, is that a short joke? My husband and I are here tonight to discuss our attempt to get our vacation rental properties in compliance with the law. We own a triplex on 14th and Judson Street in Longmont. The addresses are 1356, 1358, and 1360 Judson. We've been renting 1356 as a vacation rental since 2013 and 1358 since 2015. 1360 is leased as a long-term rental. The issue is that we live in Willis Heights, Highway 66, and Main Street, and the neighborhood is just outside of the Longmont city limits. We can walk to the city limits in 2 minutes from our house, and we can drive to the vacation rentals in 7 minutes. I was born in Boulder, and David's lived here for 15 years. We shop, bank, pay Longmont city sales tax, and have a Longmont zip code. I had registered the 2 vacation rentals online and arranged with Dane to come and do the inspection a few weeks ago. I got a call from him the morning of the day we were to meet, and he told me that as we don't technically live in the city, that according to the letter of the new law, we can't operate our properties as vacation rentals. We're asking for the city council to consider the intent of the law and grant an exception considering our residency of Willis Heights, zip code 80504, within the scope of ownership of a legal vacation rental. We take great pride in the property and believe it's an asset to the community. Thanks for your consideration. So, and I just passed stuff out, and so I don't know.
Yeah, so at this time, basically, you have your 3 minutes and you pray that we were listening.
Correct.
Yes, that's about it.
And I did it.
And
I'm
yeah, and
stressed, but I did
You
it.
did. So I'm pretty sure that some of us will follow up with city management afterwards and
Okay.
try to remember what the law said and what we did and
Okay.
and all
My
that stuff.
the law says basically, my understanding is that the letter of the law says that you have to live within the city limits.
Mm-hmm.
And we live right behind Life Bridge Church.
Okay. Well,
So,
we appreciate you bringing it to our attention, and
so can you tell me what's my next, do I just wait to hear from somebody, or?
you don't know. Literally, this is an
Okay.
opportunity for you to talk to us. We
I
don't,
see.
protocol says we don't respond back at this time.
Oh, I see, okay.
But we appreciate your time.
Okay.
All righty?
All
Mayor, I'll
right.
get her information as
Yep.
soon as we're finished.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Erbs. All right, Cameron McKay.
Hi there, Cameron McKay, 923 Corey Street. I've been a volunteer here in Longmont for a number of years in the area of homeless services, and I'm here tonight first to thank Council for some improvements that have been made in those services recently, and also to ask you to please consider consolidating some of those services in a single location in the city to improve the consistency and effectiveness of those services. So in 2019, you may recall that this is the very first year that this city has offered and funded navigation services all year round. In previous years, that only was funded for 6 months of the year. And if you saw the story in the Times Call last week, you'll notice that the rate of exits from homelessness has greatly increased this year due to those year-round services. So thank you to everybody on council who supported that. Thank you to everybody on staff who worked to make that happen. I should mention also that all these services are provided in accordance with Boulder County's Coordinated Entry Program, which is a program that's designed with strong accountability for participants in mind, and also, because it's locally funded, focuses those local dollars on services for local residents, not for folks from other parts. So why am I asking you, though, to consolidate these navigation services in a single location in the city? Well, because of time constraints, I'll just give you one little example and then ask you to extrapolate from there, but there are many examples like this. So right now, the city's services that we offer, the navigation services, so things like showers, laundry, food, sleeping space, case management, are offered at 3 different locations around the city. 4 nights at one church, 3 nights at another church, and then another church is used, a third church is used when those other 2 churches have scheduling issues. Now, showers and laundry are only available at 2 of those churches. So that means if you're somebody who's homeless and you've maybe got a day labor job, but you've got an interview for a retail or restaurant job the next day, you had better hope that that night before your interview, you are at one of those churches that has shower and laundry services, so you can have clean clothes and smell nice for your interview. And you would also better hope you can get there early enough to make use of those services. How much more quickly could our residents transition out of homelessness if they could show up to every job interview freshly showered and in clean clothes? Unfortunately, I don't think it's practical to make the necessary upgrades to all 3 facilities where we offer these navigation services. Because, first of all, for these types of upgrades, you have to make them up to 3 times, 1 for each facility. And second, churches tend to cycle in and out of this program over the years. So every time a new church comes online to help with this, you have to go and make those same upgrades to yet another facility. If we instead chose to consolidate and offer some of these navigation services at just 1 location in the city, we would be able to make these improvements once and benefit from them every day of the year. Am I totally done here?
That's your 3 minutes, but we get,
Okay.
sorry.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, Brian Johnston? New council, new tech.
Hi, Brian Johnston, 926 Kaufman Street, and I don't know if I can get through this in 3 minutes, but I'm going to try. I want to quickly talk to you about emergency notification in the city of Longmont. And before I begin, I want to thank Councilmember White for his requesting a presentation on the newly encrypted emergency communications, regardless of whether that be labeled a procedural or policy change, to use your terminology. That was an important modification, producing uncertainty, and it needed explained. So while that presentation helped subside many of my personal concerns, some remained, and those concerns came to fruition on the night of Wednesday, September 11th. That night, a shelter in place was issued at 7:37 p.m. Residents from Nelson Road down to Clover, what's my problem? Oh, this one. So we all know about the guy with the ATV riding around. Turns out it was a BB gun, but they thought he was pointing a gun at cars. All that went down. And a reverse 911 call went out, and and it was lifted at 10:45 once a person couldn't be found. Only found out about this shelter in place from a Facebook group called Neighborhood Watch Longmont. I ironically just returned from a disaster resilience training, which is a 3-week course being taught by Tiernan Doyle, the Community Resilience Program Manager for Boulder County, and Andrew Notbaum, the Emergency Management Coordinator for Boulder County. And because my home address wasn't
We're gonna go ahead and recess. Yeah, let's go ahead and recess. Let's take 2 minutes. Sorry, you'll get it started.
I
again.
understand completely.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your patience. All right. You got a full 3 minutes again.
Okay.
Pick up where you left off. Sorry about that.
So I only found out about the shelter in place because of a civilian-run Facebook page. I just returned home from this disaster resilience training, and I didn't receive a notification of one of the reverse 911s because I don't live in that area. And then I started actively seeking information, and I was finding there's nothing available. And people were on this page like, does anyone know what's going on? Is it still in place? Has it been lifted? Have they found the person? And I know where to look for this stuff. I've studied emergency management in graduate school. I've got a master's in public administration. That's me with the Red Cross for 72 hours after Katrina hit in Gulfport, Mississippi. I've been there and responded to disasters. And for me to not be able to find anything was weird. But then it struck me, hey, I have some friends that live in the apartment complex right behind Target and King Soopers. Notified them. Here was that exchange. Hey, there's a shelter in place. She's like, we were literally about to go to that King Soopers. I go back to the page and I start looking. I was like, yeah, there's a lot of questions. Again, has it been lifted? One's like, well, I just called the police station and they're saying it's still in place. It was just like, there was a lot of ambiguity among the public. So then it kind of struck me that was like, if you're registered for reverse 911, you only get that if something's in your area. If you live in northern Longmont, but you're at Target and something's going down at Target, you don't receive the notification. People from out of town at the villages don't receive that notification. And so the next week, I brought this up with Andrew, the guy for Boulder County OEM, and he was aware of this communication gap, and he said they'd even spoken about it and even tried to implement what they call a geofencing notification system. That's where all cellular users within a range of these two towers are notified. He's like, unfortunately, we were told that wasn't possible because the only system available is the Amber Alert style system, which goes out to all of Northeast Colorado. But he was aware of this gap in communication. So, again, these are just some of the things I pulled off the page. Hey, did they get him yet? Have you all received any all clear messages yet? So just to kind of summarize all this, if you're registered for reverse 911 and you're in the area of the emergency, but you don't live in the area of that emergency, you receive no notification. And basically, this reverse 911 is the only mechanism we have in place to notify the citizens of emergencies unless the media is notified. The media was never notified during this whole incident there. There was nothing until the next day posted on the Times Call, nothing on, I checked every local, CBS, Fox, everything. No one knew anything about this. So,
all right, Mr. Johnson.
I just want to suggest that communication gap be discussed and
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, Bob Norris.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, glad to see we have a lot of returning faces and a new one. And I'm glad to see that the council now reflects more closely the demographics of the city of Longmont. I think that's good for everybody. I was at the DACA event down at Roosevelt Park, walked back down here, and then I hear Morgan speaking, and it occurs to me that if we lose a lot of these DACA recipients, you're going to lose a lot of those jobs in that list of number of jobs. So that's important, not just on a humanitarian thing. First, let me thank the City Council for recognizing the need for more early childhood education in the Mayor's Forum and some of the other events. And we generally talk about the benefit to the children and their families. We see that in some of the problems about not having enough daycares, not being able to pay the workers enough, having to charge too much, not finding enough of the teachers or people to work there. Thank you, Brian. So anyway, what has occurred to me, there's a group of us that have been meeting for some time, and that's expanded. Councilman Waters is part of that group. What we're hearing more and more is about the impact on business. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has some very serious articles about how some businesses lose 20% of their staff time because the parents don't have reliable early child education, daycare, et cetera. So that's a very expensive thing. We met with Morgan Smith a while ago, and as was referenced here, one of the barriers to bringing in new business and talent is homes and early childhood education. So those are two problems. The one gets an awful lot of attention, the other not so much. So as I was thinking about things, always dangerous, we already have an ad hoc committee that would be glad to help and is continuing to work on this. Also, when I look at the working group, some of you may know who Deming was. He's the one that helped Japan redo their business by planning things like having all parts of the business plan in the planning, from the workers to the upper management. And so I would suggest with this working group that we have people on there, for instance, that run a daycare or work at a daycare, and people who have children in the daycare. If we really want to solve the problem, we have to understand it from top to bottom, and we have to have the input. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. All right, Strider Benston.
Appreciate hearing Brian and Bob and others. Strider Benston, 951 West 17th. That thing there, I found a document from the government when I had led a job action at the post office in Chicago after an explosion, and management ordered us back to work without explaining what blew up or how much more was in the building. We were ordered back to work, so we had a little discussion about that, and I happened to be the spokesman, so it cost me 5.5 years of trying to find a job, and that was one of the things I did to feed my kids during that period of time. I won 5.5 years later, and then 2 years later, they broke my back and pushed me out again for being hurt. So, little things going on. The DACA thing is absolutely crucial now, and people need to get on board publicly to let the world and the country and the Supreme Court know that there needs to be some justice in this country. And as we see right now, impeachment hearings are beginning tomorrow, and there has never in the history of this country been a circumstance where any leader of this country, much less the supreme leader, has allied with foreign dictators to suppress democracy everywhere. Just yesterday, or the last couple of days, they had a military coup in Bolivia. And that's, we better look into this. The president's personal lawyer He's not his personal lawyer. He's not paid by the government or by the president. He's paid by Ukrainian money launderers working directly for the KGB and Vladimir Putin. At least $500,000 from Ivan and Furtov and all of these people. Let's pay attention. I thank y'all for the election, our new city council. I guess you all got formally inaugurated before I got here, so I guess this meeting is legal. But thank you much. Longmont is doing really good stuff. We need to focus on environment, transportation, housing, justice, good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Strider.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and do the consent agenda. I don't think it's going to be an issue. So, City Clerk Quintana, can you walk us through that, please?
You bet. Item 8A is Resolution 2019-113, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the 2020 intergovernmental agreement for bus service between the City of Fort Collins and the City of Longmont. 8B is Resolution 2019-114, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Denver Regional Council of Governments for the letter of intent to participate in the 2020 Denver Regional Aerial Photography Project. 8C is Resolution 2019-115, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the City of Longmont 2020 Final Classification and Pay Plan. And 8D is approved for capital improvement program amendments.
All right. Councilmember Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I move the consent agenda.
All right. The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. Actually, no, because it's consent agenda. Let's go ahead and vote. That passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to ordinances and second reading and public hearings on any matter. 9A, Ordinance 2019-63, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2019. Are there any questions from council? I did not think so. Let's go ahead and open the hearing on Ordinance 2019-63. Anyone in the audience want to come up and speak on this hotly debated topic? All right, seeing no one, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. Can I have a motion, please? Councilmember Peck.
Thank you. I move ordinance 2019-63.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further debate, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Strider, do you want your copy back? All right. All right. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break before we move on to general business, the 2020 council meeting schedule. And then we're also going to do boards and commissions tonight, next time. Okay. All right. All right, let's start thinking about making our way back. All right, let's go ahead and move on to general business, 11A, 2020 council meeting schedule and council chambers construction update. So can we get the update first?
Sure.
What's going on? When's it going to be done?
All right. Mayor Bagley, members of council, Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. May 28th is our date for hopefully finishing the council chambers remodel. This is a rehabilitation of this building, of this room, basically brought on because we are not in compliance with current ADA standards. Now, we haven't done anything necessarily to this room to trigger those standards, but we would like to be proactive considering that this is the center of democracy. And so we are planning to take out all of these seats and replace them. We are going to move this ramp, which is on this side, to this side and widen it and make it more appropriate for ADA accessibility. Widen all the doors, put in some accessible push buttons as suggested by Mary Ann not too long ago. And then in addition, we're going to change the configuration of the seating. So right now you'll see that there are 3 sets of seating. This will just be 2 with a split down the middle. We'll also be adding some staff space in the back, along with some movable tables. All of these tables in the front become movable tables so that we can use the chambers for other types of events as well. And just in case you are curious about the color scheme, kind of misleading because the big tiles here and here are for the smallest area, which is the coffee bar, which will be located in the back. But essentially, this blue color is what's going to be behind you, and we are working right now with the St. Vrain CDC to build an iron new logo for behind you as well. So be happy to leave this here so that you can take a look at the end of the meeting. The council voted on having a pop of color, and of course this is also consistent with our new logo and branding.
And then, so what's going to happen to us on Tuesday? I mean, hey, I'm liking this, May 28th. No, what will we do as council on Tuesday nights?
This is a great question. So starting the first week of February through May 28th, we will be relocating you to the library.
Cool.
The charter requires that 2 council members, two regular council meetings be set every single month, and they must be held in the Civic Center campus, City Hall, which means basically the Civic Center of the library. So we have worked with the library, and we will be in their conference rooms during that period of time.
All right, cool. Anything else? John, do you have any questions at this time about that? No? Okay. Scott?
Yeah, we can't. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Harold wanted me just to remind you all that part of the reason that we are replacing these chairs is because they are not, you can't just fix them, and they're, for all of you in the audience, you can raise your hands if you're really super comfortable in those chairs right now.
And we'll be auctioning them off, right?
Yeah.
Like the Denver Stadium?
Yeah, save them at the museum for historic value.
Send them off to
that's
previous
right.
mayors. Just take these. Dr.
Yeah.
Waters?
Yeah, this is probably, I don't mean to be, I don't mean this to be an insulting question, because you are on top of everything I know. I just want to make certain that we are on top of the sound system in that community room, in the library.
So, Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Waters, one of the things that we are doing is we are working with the Longmont Observer, who, as you know, now has the public access media piece, and so we'll be trying to figure out how do we make sure that things are televised and that there is some sound system in there.
Yeah,
The last time we
I
had a
know we
pretty
have-
elaborate sound system last time, and so
Very
we'll
good,
be
thank
working through all those details. I should point out that AV systems are not a part of this remodel, but we are looking at trying to figure out what to do with the microphones.
Councilmember Christensen?
Just to state publicly, as we discussed privately, I'd like the cold zone moved since I'm going to be stuck here for another couple of years. This is freezing. Thank you.
Actually, there'll be a whole new ceiling, different lighting package, and we'll be reworking the HVAC as well.
Is it really uncomfortable over there? Is it really? Don't tempt me, Paulie. Don't tempt me. All right. Yeah, don't make me come over there, Paulie. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the 2020 council meeting schedule.
Okay. Mayor Bagley, members of council, what we're looking for tonight is a couple of things. We'd like to set your entire council meeting schedule for the year, recognizing that between February and May, trying to keep it to as few meetings as possible will certainly be more comfortable for everybody. But we also want to ensure that we are capturing things like open sessions, determine whether you'd like to continue work sessions, coffee with council, those kinds of things. So what may be the easiest to do is to go through the calendar first, to choose which sessions you'd like to have and which ones you'd like to cancel ahead of time. And then we can talk about some of these other issues, coffee with council, work sessions, and the retreat. So if that's all right with you all, why don't we start with January? So January 2020, there are...
Oh, hold on one second. Actually, I'm just going to, Mayor Pro Tem, can I get close? Thank you.
There are 2 regular sessions, 1 study session, and one of the questions is, would you like to continue the open forum? Currently, we have this laid out in the calendar as January 21st. Does that
Yes.
schedule work okay? 2 regular sessions, 2 study sessions, and an open forum? Okay, great. Let's move on to February. February the 4th is the first meeting that will be held in the library. That's a study session. This has 2 regular sessions and 2 study sessions. Would you like to continue all of those?
Yeah.
Okay. March is when we have the NLC Congress of Cities as well as spring break, St. Vrain Valley spring break. So these are kind of some options for you. We do need 2 regular sessions at least, and so you could either cancel the meeting on the 10th and cancel the meeting on the 24th, which would take out the St. Vrain spring break and NLC, and then have regular sessions on the 3rd and 17th, or you could put the 31st in as a study session. March is really up to you all. We just need 2 regular sessions.
Cancel the 10th and then let city staff pick the dates that are best for your schedule for regular meetings.
You want to cancel the 24th for spring break for St. Vrain?
I thought that was the 10th.
No, 10th is the NLC meeting that oftentimes more than 4 council members like to attend. Cancel it? Okay, so cancel the 10th and the 24th, and then we'll have 2 regular sessions. Do you want to make sure there's a study session in there as well?
Councilmember Christensen.
We used to have more people with younger children. I'm just wondering if anybody needs to be taking the, well, actually, Susie might want to take.
Yes, Susie, suck it up.
Never mind.
Yes, okay. So we will have 2 regular sessions and 1 study session in March. Okay, very good. How about April? There are 2 regular sessions and 2 study sessions. Work okay? Great. May is Memorial Day. There are currently 2 study sessions and 2 regular sessions. If you are interested in canceling the regular session after Memorial Day, that'd be the 26th. We'd need to rearrange then your regular sessions. It's up to you.
Keep it.
Keep it 2 and 2. You got it.
Right.
June, there are 5 sessions. So you have 2 study sessions, 2 regular sessions. The CML conference is on the 23rd. This year it is held in Westminster, though. Oftentimes we need to go up the night before because it's in Breckenridge. You don't have to do that this year. So this is really up to you all. We were suggesting canceling 1 of the study sessions since there's 5 meetings that month. But you could also cancel the week of CML. This is June.
Cancel the 23rd?
23rd. So you could cancel like the 2nd and the 23rd. You still have 2 regular sessions and a study session.
Do we want to cancel the 2nd? Oh, because the 4th of July week?
Yeah, that's our in case we're not done yet week.
Okay.
Okay.
So keep the 2nd?
So we'll cancel the 2nd, cancel the 23rd. Regular sessions on the 9th and the 30th. Does that work? Okay. Okay, now we're on to July.
Keep all that, right?
I don't think, you know what? We don't have a second forum in here. That's one of the questions, whether you'd like to do a second open forum in June.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Let's do that in June. Yeah. Okay. Yep, thanks, Harold. Open forum. Okay, and we'll decide which date that looks best for. Okay, so July, 2 regular sessions, 2 study sessions. Keep those. Okay. August, 2 regular sessions, 2 study sessions. September, this is when we start to get into budget season, so we can use all the time we can get. Right now there are 3 study sessions and 2 regular sessions.
Hey, can you go back?
Yeah.
On
September.
this one? So, first day of classes,
Yeah.
I'd like to be with my kids on the 18th, and I'm sure you might be a little tired, right, Susie? Yeah.
So the suggestion is to cancel the study session on August 18th. Is that okay?
Objection?
It's the first day of
It's
school.
the first day of classes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
kids are coming home.
And I don't know why I don't remember this answer, but Jim, do you need all the sessions in September? Like if the last one was canceled, or you?
I think we keep all of them, and then if we don't need the last one, we cancel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep them all, and then
Right.
if we don't need that last one, cancel it. Okay. So now we're on to October, 2 study sessions, 2 regular sessions. We kept them all, kept all 5. And then if we don't need the last one for budget, we would cancel it.
Keep October?
Keep October, 2 regular sessions, 2 study sessions, none of them on Halloween. November and December are always fun. We usually end up with just 2 regular sessions so that people can go to NLC in November as well as take off for Thanksgiving.
No one on this council will care about the 3rd. Keep it. I'm just kidding.
And then there's Election Day. So our
I'm kidding. No, cancel the 3rd. I was joking.
So, sorry, cancel the 3rd? Cancel the 3rd. Okay. Then we have 3 other sessions. One of them, so the NLC City Summit is on the 18th of November, which is not on the 17th, but oftentimes people are flying out ahead of time. And then the 24th is Thanksgiving. Of these 3, 10th, 17th, and 24th, you have to have 2 of them as regular sessions. But you could cancel one of the other ones if you wanted for NLC.
NLC.
10th and 24th is regular, so the week of Thanksgiving, yes, a meeting? Okay.
Although, you're not in the queue, but what do you think, Councilmember Hidalgo Faring? Push the little button on your right. No, push it again. The other side, yep.
There we go.
All right,
Okay,
so go ahead
figuring this out.
and what do you think?
For Thanksgiving,
Just,
I say we have that off.
okay.
The 24th,
So we could do regular sessions on the 10th and 17th, back to back?
yes.
what I
And
think
then
we should
those
do.
who are going to NLC just would go the next day or later?
Right. I guess. Where is it? Who's going to NLC? Yeah, so you're working.
Because there are 2 sessions, there's one in March and one in November.
So I'm staying, you're staying, right? Are you going or staying? But in November? Don't know.
Next November.
All right. You going? Maybe? I'm just wondering if we'd even have a quorum,
It's like
so.
extreme planning.
So could everybody fly out, or enough people fly out on the 18th to make it work? Of November?
So what I'm hearing is that we would keep the regular sessions on the 10th and 17th. NLC City Summit doesn't start till Wednesday. So flying out that day would be what would be required in order to cancel both Election Day and the week of Thanksgiving. We I'm sure could keep it to a light agenda.
Yeah, that's canceled.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
We can move it.
Okay. So then December is the same kind of thing. Oftentimes we will cancel right around Christmas. So in this case, that would be the 22nd, maybe, and 29th for New Year's. That leaves the 1st, the 8th, and the 15th. We could do 2 of those as regular sessions. 1st and 15th might be the best because that gives 2 weeks in between. And then do you want to leave the 8th as a study session?
Yeah.
Okay. Cancel the 22nd and 29th. Yeah, very good. Excellent. Okay, let's talk about a couple other things. So what I'm hearing is 2 open forums, one on January 21st, and the other one we're going to say June, right? June 30, if I remember correctly. Yeah, June 30. Open forum. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about work sessions. So work sessions are currently scheduled the Friday morning prior to a regular session. It's kind of a backward scheduling. Yes, go ahead. Councilmember Peck.
I forgot the protocol here. I want to talk about those work sessions because I'm not sure they're working for what they were intended, and I know that Councilwoman Hidalgo Faring probably can't come to them on Friday morning, and many times that's when our NADA meetings are, and I can't come to them. And when I first made this motion for them, it was to hear about the boards and commissions from the liaisons, because I never know what's going on with these boards and commissions, or even outside things like the education meetings that you're having, what I am doing with RTD. We never educate council. But that isn't really happening. So I'm wondering, and this would just be a discussion right now, could we change our council comments? I mean, do away with the study sessions and change council comments, or add an agenda item at the end of the meetings for board and commission updates? Is there some discussion about that? I'm just throwing this out.
No, Councilmember Christensen, you're in the queue. Do you want to address this? All right, Councilmember Christensen.
Yes, I agree. When Councilwoman Peck and I were talking about this many years ago, that was the sole reason to have this as an update, so that the liaison and commissioner's position actually has some purpose, and we actually do know what people are doing, so that people are not duplicating themselves. So, and it is taking up a great deal of staff time. It is taking care of a great deal of my time, of everybody's time. And I also cannot go a lot of them because I have a conflicting Colorado Municipal League meeting on Fridays about quarterly. So I don't think it's working awfully well. And I also am very uncomfortable with being essentially out of the public eye. And even though we're not supposed to be making directions, we're kind of making directions. And while it is an optional thing, the reality is it becomes not optional. And then I would rather have an item put on the agenda that people can, if they have something to report, they can. They have to confine it to 4 minutes. If they have nothing to report, that's okay. If they have something to report, that would be good. And add that to the agenda at the end of the night.
Is there a motion?
Well, I guess what I would suggest is we just keep it the way it is, and then just know that we should just recognize that during council comments, that's the appropriate time to bring up any information that we need to convey pertaining to our boards and commissions.
Mayor, you don't mean to keep the work sessions the way they are. You mean keep the agenda the way it is?
No, I mean, no, keep the agenda the way it is,
Okay.
and then, yeah, thank you. And then
Yeah,
just at
not
the
the
end of the
work
evening, if you have something pertinent to share, I think it's wholly appropriate that we use that. Yeah. Councilmember Christensen.
Well, the problem with that is that I would like to know, even if people don't want to share it, I would like to know what other people are doing. And I would like to have a time that is specifically set aside for that, rather than have it left up to somebody to whimsically report that they have something to report, or not.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I don't really care whether we report on our board meetings during council comments or whether it's a separate agenda item. I think that we must update if a board met the previous week, maybe a little forced, because sometimes you go to a board meeting and nothing worth saying happens. You know, say, yeah, we met, there was a quorum, nothing to report. And so I'm happy to do that. I would like to preserve the option of having a work session when a work session is necessary. And I do think we need to figure out a different time, both so that, you know, we now have 3 members of this body who have full-time jobs. And so the Friday morning work session is increasingly difficult. And it is not very good for being in the public eye. So, you know, nobody seems to have any trouble making coffee with council. You know, we always do that. So maybe it should be at that time. We don't have coffee with council every Saturday morning. So why could we not say that if a work session is needed, it shall be scheduled on Saturday morning or some other time, but at a time when the public can appear, and that does not conflict with business hours?
Mayor Bagley, members of council, I would remind you that your rules of procedure say that you can call a special meeting anytime you'd like. So as long as we have time to notice it, you're welcome to set that for any time. So we don't have to set specific times through the calendar. We can do it as it comes up if you'd rather.
That's fine.
All right. Councilmember Christensen.
Remember, we used to have, well, study sessions are actually what this is for, this time. And we also used to have something called pre-sessions when something came up that was pretty timely and we really needed to deal with it quickly, and so we needed to have an emergency, not an executive session, but an emergency information session so that we knew what we were allegedly talking about that night. And so I would suggest that perhaps we could, if there are things that need to be dealt with, we deal with them an hour or so before our regular meeting, which is when we have we've had a lot of executive sessions this year, so we've been doing that anyway. That might make it a little difficult for Councilwoman Hidalgo, but okay.
Nobody's in the queue, so I was just going to jump in. I guess I look at this a little differently. We're liaisons, they're advisory boards. You know, their job is to advise, and so so it's rare that I think that we have things to report. You know, and so when it's important, I think that we should say it. But I'm going to actively make sure that I don't attend as many meetings as I've done. My personal life's taken a heavy toll. I'm walking out at 11 o'clock from now on. I'm not going to Friday morning meetings. I sure as hell am not going to miss any more time with my kids on Saturday. So you guys can do what you want, but I won't be attending. Not because I don't think it's a great idea, but if you got young kids, you love your husband, then this whole activity right here is not something you should give any time up for at all with this. But anyway, so I just think that it's just not worth it. So, Councilmember Peck.
I move that we cancel the Friday morning work sessions.
All right, let's vote. Councilmember Martin, push that button. All right, cool. It passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. So next up is indeed talking about board and commission applications. So generally what has happened is held at a Civic Center conference room. We usually have one session where you're able to interview candidates at mid-year and one at the end of the year. We'd be happy just to set those up now if you'd like to, so that you know what that looks like. It is generally a Saturday, but we can do it in some different ways if you would choose, if you'd rather. Just pick one. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah. There's a couple that I think Don has suggested. So City Clerk Quintana is talking about the 16th of May and either December 5th or 12th. Yeah, the 12th may be the parade. Mm-hmm. Is that okay with folks if we do board interviews on December 5th and on May 16th?
That looks good. Does that look good with you guys? Yep.
December 5th and May 16th is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes. Okay, great.
What about council retreat?
Council retreat. Got only a couple more of these left. So council retreat, usually done in the first quarter. It's really up to you, and it really does depend on what kind of preparation you want from staff. But let's start with dates.
November 3rd, 2020.
November 3rd, 2020.
Oh, just teasing, Marcia.
So generally, we have done it around kind of mid-Feb. We've done it all kinds of times, just depending on whether we're waiting for council members or whether it's something that you wanted to kick off your year with. Sometimes we've done them mid-year. It really is the council's preference. It's your retreat and it's your time.
Susie, do you have any days that you're?
It has been on a Friday or a Friday, Saturday in the past, yep. So yes, if there is a St. Vrain Day.
Days, though? We usually just do one day, right? We can just do one day.
We did do one day last year, yep, absolutely, and it really does depend on what your agenda says, what
So
you
this-
all would like
this
to talk
year?
about.
9th year, do we get Casa Bonita? Or no?
This is the year for Casa Bonita.
One year. Why would I wear my Speedo to Casa Bonita? To dive? I can't dive. I'll do the Nacho Libre.
That's good. Okay, so that's Valentine's Day. Y'all want to
No.
spend it together?
No. I love you guys, but no. Let's do a Saturday. Let's do a Saturday the 8th. What about the 8th?
Okay, so I have a proposal on the table, one for Valentine's Day, one for February 8th. I heard no on
Who
Valentine's
said Valentine's Day?
So February 8th, which is a Saturday. Does that work for everybody? Okay, we have a date. I'll be bringing you back suggestions, and we can talk about retreat topics soon. Last one, Coffee with Council. So Coffee with Council traditionally held the last Saturday of every month at different coffee shops. We've been trying experiential places and are always up for suggestions. But the question really is, do you want to continue them? They only go really January through October. We don't do ones in November and December.
Whether or not we're going to you want to know if we want to continue Coffee with Council?
Yes.
Yeah, I dare anybody to say, yeah, we want to cancel the coffee with our constituents. No, I don't think that's happening. Yeah, we're going to keep them.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Um,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
Councilmember
I wanna-
Hidalgo Ferry.
No, I don't want to cancel Coffee with Council, but I do have a suggestion, something that I realized as I was talking with my constituents in Ward 3, is the accessibility to even make it to Coffee with Council. So proposing the idea of rotating to different community centers, churches, places where typically people meet and feel safe in those spaces, it might expand the probability that we'd get different types of community members engaged in conversation.
As long as there's donuts, I'll be there.
Okay.
So Mayor Bagley, we don't usually provide donuts. Coffee.
I was just joking.
I don't want that
I
rumor to
guess
get
I'm not
out
going.
there.
No, that's fine.
And, you know, I would say that if anybody has ideas for where we could hold Coffee with Council, please let us know, because we're always looking for new places. Coffee with Council started really in coffee shops, which aren't always the most conducive for the conversation. So we found that some of our alternative sites have actually been better for this event. So please let us know where you'd be interested in holding for 2020. Yeah.
Good idea. Councilmember Christensen.
Well, I'd like to get the ball rolling by volunteering myself for January and July.
So generally, you don't necessarily need to do that. I'll certainly mention
Oh,
that to
all
Maria,
right.
but Maria usually just sets them all up for the year, and then you're welcome to switch if something doesn't work last minute. Yeah.
And if I get assigned those days, you can have them.
Okay. Mayor, the last thing I just want for you to know is that we will bring back all of these dates in a finalized calendar for your official approval at a regular session very soon.
All right, Councilmember Peck.
Thank you. I want to discuss the Mayor's Book Reading Club, even though I'm sure that he is excellent. I think it was mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, that you end up getting the same kids or kids that aren't interested, and I think it was, I don't know who brought up this idea, but I thought it was great in that we take the books to where the kids are, to apartment houses, and everybody on council reads. And it's council's book club, or So, for example, if you have kids in the Legacy Apartments, then we would go to the Legacy Community Center or whatever, and those kids could come for that period, and then somebody else could go somewhere else, or so that we spread it around town and we get to hit kids where they are rather than having kids. That might screw up filming it. I don't know. That would be up to. But again, I'm just throwing this out. Is anybody interested in, on council in that idea?
Yes.
There is.
I'm seeing
Well,
the
I
observer
think
say,
that-
no problem.
So.
Easy.
Yeah, so
Easy.
a couple of, so responding to your question, the problem, I mean, there's a couple, if we were doing an autopsy on Mayor's Book Club, I think it's been, I mean, first of all, the kids and parents love it, or love the idea, but sometimes the books are too long, and I'm all for 100% doing it in English and Spanish, but a lot of times we get kids who come that don't speak Spanish, and so if you're videotaping, you're filming kids that don't speak Spanish, and so you read the book a second time in Spanish, and they're not paying attention, and it's just, you know, the vibe's not there. And so I mean, what I'd ideally like to do is, you know, do exactly what we're talking about, go into Hispanic, Spanish-speaking communities, go into wherever, and read the books in their native language, and, you know, get as many people in the community, especially community leaders like city council, involved so that, you know, it's shorter, the kids are there, it's a relevant story, a relevant language, and we're connecting. Because it's not about making good television, it's about, which it's not currently, I don't think, and that's not any fault of whoever's doing the recording or the person doing the reading, I might add. No, but it just needs to be shorter, more on point, and we need to instill a love of reading. That's the whole point of it. So I think it's a great idea. Sorry, Councilmember Christensen.
Yeah, I agree, and that would take some of the burden off you having to do it every time. But I think all of us love reading, and I think we'd all, I mean, speaking for myself, I would love to do it. And that's something I used to do with my son's school. Anyway, so yeah, I think the problem is who picks the books, as you've pointed out before, and trying to find a sort of equitable and inclusive way to spread it around the whole community so that everybody, it's a little like Coffee with Council. We want it to be spread around so that everybody gets a chance to come to a different place or has it close to where they are, one of the two.
Although I would push back and say I don't want to do it any less. I would want to expand, if that makes sense.
Do what?
I wouldn't want to do it less myself. I would want to expand,
okay.
meaning more opportunities. And how I decided to start picking, they used to pick the books, and then I got stubborn and just would pick them myself. And then staff brought a big box and just said, okay, here are all the potential books, pick some. And so now I just pick them. But that process could be improved too.
Be happy to help you.
I don't know any. I'm
Mayor,
kidding,
sounds
Susie,
like
that's
you.
a joke.
Mayor, it sounds
We're
like
gonna
there's
use
general
ya.
agreement on this. We'd be happy to bring back a proposal.
Yeah, okay. All right, anything else on that? All right, okay. All right, let's move on to final call, public invited to be heard. All right, let's close that opportunity. Mr. Marsing, no? Okay. All right, let's move on to mayor and council comments. Anyone want to report on boards? Just kidding. All right, Councilmember Christensen.
Well, I don't have anything prepared, but tonight we had a large group of people. This was started by a group of young people in Loveland, and it's having to do with DACA, which of course is now coming up against by the Supreme Court. So I would urge everybody to of course this is being decided by the Supreme Court, so they're not big fans of getting letters and they don't respond to that, but I would suggest that people just take some time to contact their national representative and let them know their feelings about the DACA program. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, city manager, any remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City attorney, do you have anything brilliant to say to this new council?
Nothing brilliant, Mayor. No comments.
All right, par for the course.